call it, and I just
There's still warm.
Yeah.
They can tell them.
Yeah, please, y'all help yourselves. Just, it makes for a long, seriously.
Thank you, Cecilia. This is, we'll call the meeting to order. This is the February meeting of the Virginia-Highland Board of Directors. There are agendas around. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Any comments or thoughts? So moved, and we're going to move on first to Council Member 1, so you have the floor.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. A couple of things I wanted to talk about. It still scares me every time. So glass recycling, there's been a lot of conversation, and I apologize, my last newsletter did not make it as clear as I probably could have. So I wanted to let everybody know, despite the reports that y'all are hearing about other municipalities and glass recycling, about how the glass that you put in your recycling bin is actually ending up in landfills because the cost of recycling is below the inflection point. The city's recycling contractor, Waste Pro, is not the one that was in the article. Waste Pro does take the glass to a glass recycler, not to the landfill. So please continue to put your glass in your blue bins. They will make it to a recycler. If you want to be doubly safe, as I'm kind of weird about this, I take mine down to Charm now just to be extra safe. It's the Center for Hard to Recycle Materials down at by the Turner Field. But that's because I take my styrofoam and my plastic bags down there too. I just do it all at one time. But please help me spread that word. I know there's still confusion out there, and folks have just started throwing their glass into the big green ones. Don't do that. Okay, second piece of big news is you've probably seen it. We finally reached a settlement agreement with between the Atlanta Public Schools and the Beltline regarding the payment. All three entities have passed the settlement unanimously, or not unanimously, but overwhelmingly. Which is nice because it's going to allow all of us to kind of go back into our lanes and focus on educating kids, building out the Beltline, and then also just governing the city. It was 2 years of very tough negotiations, and I'm just glad it's behind us. I was also very pleased to work with Peggy, she's not here, about getting a stop sign, a four-way stop, and Jennifer too, installed at Barnett and Virginia Circle.
That's great.
Yeah, I think it's going to help. And I was actually joking with, not joking, but laughing with the Public Works Commissioner about, I kind of attribute, I think, the additional traffic to the Waze traffic app.
Oh, yeah, that's what
because it always sends me to Barnett where I normally would not have even thought about it. So I'm glad to have done that. But I still welcome, and Jennifer and I talked about kind of a comprehensive conversation in the community about all the different traffic issues. And I just don't want us to go in and solve one problem and then create another one somewhere else. So I think we need to look at it kind of community-wide. Speaking of community-wide traffic and installations, the Monroe Drive proposed road diet, I'd hoped by beginning of February that I would have kind of a timetable from the Infrastructure Bond Executive Director for the public input process on that. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of lead time before a decision is made on a go or no-go on that, but there will be plenty of opportunity for public input. I don't have that yet. As soon as I get it, I will let y'all know. I know that Virginia-Highland has had particularly keen interest in that project. So as soon as I have that, I'll share it with the organization and y'all, if y'all will help me get that out.
Are there any similar road diet projects that have started becoming input?
No. In fact, I mean, Monroe's really the only one that's on the infrastructure bond list. And so, I think I shared with, in a previous meeting, the mayor has said, I've heard that Monroe and Boulevard is one of his priority corridors before he leaves office. We have a 5-year window to do all the projects, but I think this will be front-loaded. And it also means, by doing that, he's bringing the Beltline folks in as well, because in order to reconfigure the whole 10th and Monroe situation, you really have to have a Beltline solution for all the pedestrians and the bikers and walkers that are using it. Speaking of infrastructure bond, I just wanted to thank Catherine publicly for all of her hard work. We are moving along. I think we made some good progress these last 2 weeks regarding the renovation of the fire station number 19. Hoping that we can get all that hammered out and sometime later this year be able to really start the work on that. As you know, by doing that, we hopefully can preserve that station and keep it useful for some time to come and not have the conversation about replacing it. So
Well, Alex, it's really you, the bond issue is what made the difference. That
Well-
was that's what the tipping point.
the timing
We
was
were going
perfect.
slow, and then when you sat down at the table and said we were bond.
The timing was right. It was a good, right project at the right time. So with that, that's all I wanted to report out, but I am certainly will entertain questions or feedback or thoughts anybody has.
I noticed we got a note from, I don't know if you got an odd note request for a meeting on Thursday that didn't include Catherine from.
I'm fired, clearly from the committee.
From my office?
No, it came from Marie's.
From Marie's, so I didn't know if that was some computer, which I'm gonna forward it to you.
Okay.
Yep, I just sent him a note that said Marie's.
So it cannot happen.
They're trying to tempt you over to the dark side.
I know.
Yeah, do you have a question?
Yeah, Alex, I read in the paper that part of the APS Beltline compromise
Right.
agreement
Mhm.
was included turning over the deed to 10 properties.
Correct.
But I haven't seen a list of those properties. Has that been public yet?
So technically, they are two separate conversations, so they weren't part of the
Oh,
settlement.
you're right.
Yeah,
I didn't
Right,
speak yet.
but kind of now that we moved past that and in the spirit of wanting to move the city forward with APS, the mayor announced at the State of the City on Thursday that he was going to give the remaining 10 deeds in question over. I don't know the status on that. We haven't seen legislation because technically the council has to approve the transfer of the deeds. But it's in, I don't know which 10 either, so I can find out. As soon as we know. I'll
Yeah,
let you know.
I'm sure it'll be published.
But I know that Dare Park one is the big one, and that's contentious, and that's the one that I'm sure is on there. I'm just so glad to have that behind us. I mean, I can't even tell you all. My understanding is that the deal was there and it fell apart and came together and fell apart many times over the last 6 months. So as soon as they had a deal, that's why everybody rushed to say yes. We'll do it. Anything else? Yeah.
Can you update on the Park Atlanta timeline?
So no, not right now. They just wrapped the final public input hearing, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, or maybe, I think it was 2 weeks ago. So now Transportation Committee, which unfortunately I don't sit on, they'll take it in. Yolanda Adrian, who chairs that publicly, has said that she hears everyone loud and clear and that it really is time for something new. But I don't know specifically where they're heading with it, and I can find out from her. But I am highly doubtful that it will proceed or continue past expiration in the similar form. That's the indication we're getting from the administration. So, yeah. Yes.
I just wanted to say, this isn't business or anything, but I enjoyed seeing you at once, and I love that you're very approachable, and people like you, and we like you. I just wanted to tell you that, because sometimes it's really difficult to speak to leaders, and you're just really cool.
That's going to be my
You
next
stood out in my mind over the holidays when we saw you out for dinner, and it's just cool that you flagged us over, so thanks.
It's going to be my campaign slogan. Well, for me,
So
I'm
cool.
cool.
Really cool. Anyway.
No, I'm lucky. I appreciate being able to represent some great neighborhoods and a lot of great people.
How about the ones that aren't so great? You appreciate
I-
that?
Yeah, I appreciate them too.
Okay, you can tell us later which one.
Which one each of us falls into? Which one?
Well, Alex, one more good, warm, fuzzy
Uh-oh.
note. No, just a thank you to Sheila for all of her help with
Gosh, yes.
coordinating the four-way stop that's coming up for Barnett and Virginia Circle. And she's been helpful on so many different initiatives as well. It seems like when we kind of hit a roadblock or get stalled, she's able to get things moving again. So thank you for having such a great person on your staff.
She holds that office together. It's not me. I just get to be the front person. Anything else? All right, well, y'all know where to reach me. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Alex.
So I think we're ready to move on.
Alex.
Yeah. I'll get it for
No, it's an easy one.
Okay.
We're going to move on to
so approachable.
planning. So let's, Rupley is deferred and that doesn't really mean any action. And you'll be pleased to know with this excessively long note that explains everything that happened in Ray. Jury has been wiped away about 3 sentences here on this excessively short note in which the neighbor has agreed and all is well. So why don't we move to yours, because you're 2 months old here, so you can go first, please, if you will.
Okay, you can tell me if this needs to be in any different format than the planning committee meetings, but essentially, I'm just asking for one setback variance. If anyone wants to see the plans, I have copies.
Is this the Hudson Drive one?
No, this is Drury.
Oh,
965 Drury.
Judy and Frederick.
It's Jay and Hazel Wagner's old place at the corner of Frederica and Drury Street, actually at the end of the street. And I'm replacing the deck, and need one setback variance because the new deck will align with the back of the house, and the house is already in the setback because it's a corner lot and it's 1912. So the neighbor, the reason there's a lot of information in the agenda on it, is the new neighbors right behind me were concerned about the site plan, which I have, even though I'm only asking for a setback variance, I do have a site plan that addresses water runoff. I'm gonna install French drains and a grass paver system, as well as some additional plantings to help mitigate some water runoff issues. And the new neighbors just wanted to understand, because they just bought the house in December. So they wanted to understand, had some concerns about that. They were at the planning committee meeting last week. I'm sorry, just before all around. Yeah, right. They've had plenty of it to look at. So they were at the planning committee meeting on Thursday, and the planning committee was reluctant to give a recommendation because they still had concerns. They have since given me their consent, which I showed Jack, and I emailed you guys a copy of it. So at this point, I'm only looking for the setback variance, but I do have plans.
So this was an amazing administrative storm, but it's all worked out. The neighbors had moved, the new neighbors moved in after the prior notification. It was a near perfect storm, but it's all worked out, and Chip put a huge amount of work into, and so did Trey and y'all, in terms of really leaving, I'm quite convinced, a much better situation. So please make that happen. Because, and so I think it's going to be better for everyone with this. The stormwater is going to be much improved, so that's a big relief here. And so the neighbor has signed off, and her only concern was they had barely gotten their arms around it just before the process, and they were all amazed by the amount of information we were throwing at them about stormwater when they were new to the topic. So very nice people. It's all worked out. And I think we're good to go, and we have a condition on the site plan dated, and I don't know if I came away with that. What was the site plan dated?
Usually you'll have, do you have a city stamp on that one, or?
I don't think that I can stand that. But the plan date is 1/7/16, January 7/16.
All right, so is that the motion then, Norman?
So moved.
All right, so it's a motion to approve based on the site plan date 1/7/16, which has a number of stormwater mitigation problems, which they needed to struggle with because their original plan would have put them over the top. So they've done good stuff well, we hope. So that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions from anyone? Any comments? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, and so we don't get to say this all. The next stop is the VZA. Because this came pre-approved from the NPU if we approved it. So this has worked out awfully well. It's never happened before, and I think if Debbie has something to do with it, it'll never happen again. But you're done, so no sweat. And so Debbie will see you at the VZA, or somebody will for sure, later this week.
It's Thursday.
Thursday.
What is the date of the site?
1/7/16, January 7th. Do you want this date?
That's not stamped by the city, though.
Yeah. I'll do this.
Okay, so
Thank you, Jack.
y'all are done. Y'all have good luck. Keep smiling.
Take some gingerbread for the road.
Yeah, take some gingerbread.
Don't
And
make me
actually,
take
you
this
did
home.
well in the meeting, because that could have gone south in a hurry, and I
I
appreciate
appreciate
that
you
y'all
guys' help.
kept it on the high road, so thanks very
This one
much.
is the gingerbread.
They're both gingerbread ones. The darker one's a little
That
spicy.
almost always
Okay,
works.
thank you. Appreciate it.
All right,
Thank you.
y'all are up. So it's on you. You didn't even get pictures of your project in there, that's how normal it was. In our report, but pictures of them, but not all. So fill her up.
So, like we did last week, or?
Yeah,
You're gonna
because
lay-
I think
you're
they're
gonna lay-
gonna qualify now, I think, unless there's some odd objection at the meeting. They're gonna get to the consent agenda, I think. I mean, everything's done.
This is, they're constructing this, you're doing a second story addition?
Yes, it's in
Okay,
the site.
then they should be.
There's a tiny extension, it's not, but it's nothing, so it's fine. Yeah,
Is
so
this
just a-
Hudson Drive? Is that the one we're doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so just give a quick report of what you're doing.
Yes, our house was built in 1920, and we're doing a second level expansion in the same exact footprint as it was 1920. But the problem with the variances is we need a side yard setback because we're 3 feet off the property line, and now it's 7, so we need a variance for 3 feet. That's one. We do have a deck in the very back that may be extended. It's already at 3 feet off the property line, but it may be extended, I don't know, maybe 1 to 6 feet. We're still kind of machinating around in the back deck. So in the very back of the property, we might extend the current deck 1 to 6 feet. And then on the front yard, we have a gable above our porch, and it is 20 feet off the front yard, but the setbacks today are 25 feet. So we need to get a variance in the front yard setback to move it from the current 25 feet to 20 feet. Again, existing same footprint. And I have house plans and elevations that I'm happy to show anybody.
You guys were to this.
Yeah, I actually think all is well. It is an unusual lot, it's an L-shaped lot, as the note notices, so there's no lot coverage issues, and stormwater shouldn't be significantly different at all. I will suggest that you say that you may not have to speak on this again, but don't say you're considering extending it, just say you're gonna build this large one, but you might make it smaller. Smaller is never a problem, larger people, if you've got permission to do that large one, so just stick with that. If you do it shorter, no one will hear.
Okay.
And that will just save the question. Are there any comments or questions for them? There's one tree, they have a permit for it to come down, all is well on that. And any comments or questions from anyone? A motion then, all?
I moved to approve the 16022.
That's 120. And next year,
What,
the date was 120.
based on, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Based on the site plan dated 1/20/2016.
Is there a second? Any last minute comments or questions? All in favor, raise your hand. We'll see y'all next Monday. And I think this is going to qualify for the consent agenda, so you may not have to practice your speech anymore. If no one objects, you'll just get approved without objection. And that will be the way it is if things go well at the BZA. So you may not, otherwise you can stay up late and practice. All right, so that's
Thanks,
it.
guys.
Thank you all very much.
Sure. Gingerbread on the way out?
Super Bowl's the end of the big eating, so.
Oh,
Thank you.
sure. Nice to see you guys.
All right, we're going to go back a little out of order because I believe you're Park's mom, is that?
I'm Park's mom, yes, I am.
And that's correct. You know, I met Park at the NPU meeting, so just introduce, we don't do campaigning, of course, in these meetings, but you can introduce and explain
Okay.
who you are here, and who you are, and who you're here on board.
Okay, I think we've seen almost, because we've been everywhere. Park has had me in places I didn't even know exist in Atlanta over the last 8 weeks, I think it is now. But Park is running for Georgia House District 58, which is the seat to replace Simone Bell. Simone Bell resigned in October for health reasons, and she publicly asked Park to run for her seat. So Park's a 24-year-old, and this is her first time running. There was a special election on January 19th. She got 47% of the vote. The competitor got 33% of the vote. So there's going to be a runoff on the 16th.
We're just gonna stay with
Okay.
it. So that, yeah.
Okay.
So that's the runoff is,
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Mm-hmm.
right, which is
Vote right here.
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow, right?
Well, it
Well,
started
from
from
next week.
yeah, next week, next Tuesday.
And I voted in here on the first election, and I was the 19th person to vote at 5:30 in the afternoon.
Isn't that
Wow.
something?
It was,
Some poles had 8 people, so
it would have been easier to Uber me downtown and cheaper for the
Yeah.
county
it was cold that day
to,
too.
yeah. Well, thank you for coming.
Yes.
And I will, Barb did come to the MPU meeting, she's a former lobbyist for the Feminist Women's Health Center.
Oh,
That's
sure.
correct.
So anyway, thank you for coming and our greetings to everyone. And we like Ralph too. Ralph's a nice guy.
Mhm. Okay, very good.
He is a very nice guy. So thank you.
Thank you.
for coming.
And enjoy the gingerbread on the way out.
I will, I most certainly
Okay,
You're
will.
welcome to stay, but our feelings are not hurt if you want to go do
Got a lot to
something
do.
different or better, so.
You know we gotta run to another one, right?
All right, well, Morningside's that way.
She
so
said
they
something
go.
else,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
all right.
Thanks.
good night, everybody, thank
Night.
you.
Night.
All right.
God knows we worked hard enough to get it. Once we use it.
Thank you.
Is there any other parks planning business? Okay, let's move on then to the 2016 goals, which were circulated, they're printed out here. Jennifer, the new copy I sent you after you wrote back is mostly in your formatting, but except for the parks goals, which I tried resolutely, but I only had 20 hours, so I couldn't get those things to done properly. So I'm sure you can, and I'm just want to put in another plug for Word Perfect. I will notice that
That's what you use. when
No.
you never find an application.
no, I love Word Perfect, and it's a tragedy that it got so
You're just gonna have to let this go, Jack.
I will someday.
Long gone.
long gone. Not even your
That
law firm
along,
uses it,
that
Jennifer?
along with Lowe's.
Jennifer, not even your law firm? Because law firms were the last refuge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
That
shame.
Lowe's one.
And your BlackBerry in it.
The ship has sailed. So I believe we can adopt them. I will notice a couple things about them. First of all, let's get a motion to adopt them so we can talk about it. Can we do that?
So moved.
All right, seconded, all right, fine. So now, a couple things. We don't have budget amounts on some of these, because in some cases, we don't have the exact, we've historically replicated the figures we used before, the year before, that were not special projects. We brought those forward on the assumption that the next year events would likely mimic the prior year events, ideally with changes. And normally, I will just note that we normally don't fund projects that are in the thought stage. We enunciate them, that we may do it, but we only fund them after a proposal based on actual research and is brought forward and ready to go. So, but I think they're good, and I will just add that somehow David and I talked about trying to get all those damn ads off of APS property. And so now that got left out of our planning goals, so I'll have to add that one in there. And that's we're gonna need to act with Morningside and Midtown and as many groups as we can, and ask Matt and the superintendent if they'll help us on that. And I suspect that's gonna be a time challenge because they've signed contracts.
Yeah.
But if this could get gone over the next year and they can quit doing it, it would be awfully nice. I don't know, but they appear to be immune from city zoning laws, amazingly, according to Doug. And it's just astonishing. And do we want to go ahead and adopt these, or? And by the way, they can be changed freely during the year if things are dropped.
Jack, where'd you put the fire station?
It's under planning.
It is not under preservation.
Why would it be under preservation?
Because that's the
Preserving
committee
the
over
historic. Okay, let's move that over there.
I know you want me on planning.
Well,
I will
the
continue
way
to
it's
resist.
drafted now, Catherine,
Is
is
it
it's a subcommittee.
Of-
Preservation is a subcommittee of planning.
Okay.
That's what this document
But
says.
yeah, we'll move it
Yeah.
over there, for sure.
Terrific, thanks.
Somebody wasn't thinking, that's all. It was not submitted.
Yeah, Jax, there are a few typos in here. I suggest, I think we're past the wordsmithing stage, but if anyone just sees a few typos, we'll just clean those up
Oh,
before we
absolutely.
publish them.
Absolutely,
But
that's
yeah.
a standing order of the association.
I can do that, I'm happy to do that, look at it if you like, just cleaning things up and typos.
For example, if we say will, they meant to say will not.
Yeah.
That's just an idea.
I'll edit that up.
Real nice.
And our committees have, I mean, a number of them overlap, and I think we all know that, and it's obvious, but that's all good to go, so. And I'm still hoping, Pam and I, since Paige is ill tonight, I'll mention, that Pam and I are going to see Rob Glazier, yes, and Frazier, Rob Frazier as well, on, who's a Rob Glazier? Who is it?
The race guy is simply.
No, that's not him. I don't think that's him, but anyway, we're trying to come out with a final settlement on that, or an understanding of what happens if your money. And the issue before that, he just wiped
So
us
what
off
is the issue?
I do not understand, but Pam thinks she has a handle on it, and
I mean, how much do we think we're short?
we do not know. I am not opining.
You and Pam are meeting with him?
Yeah. You want to go? I don't know. I just went to lend such gravitas as I had to the situation. But, we're going to his office, right, though, just so there's, all the records are there, and I'm hoping we're gonna resolve it and walk out of it when it's done.
It usually takes some time to get that all sorted out. I just seem to
Yeah, year and a half seems like.
not, usually it's by September. This time it's back on February.
Is there a motion, is there any further comments on the goals, other than correct the typos, and we can continue to amend them? I mean, that's, tends to go on all year as it should. We see them as living, breathing things. Things get resolved, new things arise, bring them up, stick them in. All right, is there a motion? Shall we ready to vote on it?
How much it took?
All right, we already have. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Good to go. Any opposed? All right, David, can you talk a little bit about parks, and particularly where we are with the grant and what we did today?
Sure. So Peter Frawley, the landscape architect, myself and Jack went down to the Parks Design Committee meeting downtown on this was the 28th of last month, and updated them with site plans for incorporating the revised, or I guess the newly added granite seating wall along Virginia, running from basically DeLeon went through from there out and basically up to Barnett around the corner. And Parks was fairly enthusiastic about it. We did incorporate some breaks for existing trees, so that we were having negative tree impacts. But long story short, we got the formal approval from Alvin and the rest of the team to move forward with the design. Next up is, should I say it's due Friday, Jim, or Monday?
Let's do Monday. I'm hoping to get it in Friday, not think about it all weekend.
We tend to have a history of submitting things 15 minutes before they're due with Park Pride, but we do have an updated deadline to submit the grant application. It's a community building grant. We've updated the figures, the budget, the plans. It's a fairly thorough plan, and that's due on Monday the 15th, so we hope to get that in prior to that. So really that's kind of where we are with that. Awards will be announced, I believe, about 1 month after, so sometime in March, so we'll know whether or not the project's going to continue and go forward. Indications are positive, but we'll wait and see what happens. So I don't think I'm missing anything else there. If I am, feel free to speak up. The other meeting today, we had Jack and I went down to North Highland Park and met with the executive director of an organization, a nonprofit called Atlanta Celebrates Photography. I don't know if anybody's familiar with them, but they do specialize in really, frankly, a leading center for art, and their mission is to make Atlanta well known for art, both local as well as international. They do temporary exhibits, they do public art, so not permanent, or they recommend permanent public art artists. So the concept there was to just really kind of discuss and theorize on the possibility of doing some sort of public-oriented art, community-based or larger, at North Highland Park. We were thinking along the fence on North Highland potentially, if anyone's gone over the Beltline and seen, and actually called their, yeah, they do
It's really good,
something called the Fence Project over there, which is
very good.
neat photography.
Yes, that's cool.
So doing kind of a mini version of that potentially. And so we're just tossing around ideas and seeing if they'd be open to the concept of supporting and working with us on that. And Amy, the executive director, will get back with us with some plans. At that point, we can bring them forward to the board and discuss them as well. We'll obviously have to go through and discuss all the community and kind of set everything out. So right now it's just discussions, but if anyone has any thoughts or concepts on what might be interesting and community oriented and nice photographic art is really what they specialize in for the park, and feel free to submit them to Jack and myself or to the board as a whole, and we'll be all ears. So.
I'd like to somehow integrate Grady in this. I mean, Grady is so artsy and their kids are amazing and they want community service hours and they love this stuff. If we can just get our public schools into the neighborhood a little bit more, I would love that.
Yeah.
And I can certainly share with the right contacts there, but I just would love to see kids get involved in the community. There's like a handful of people that even babysit anymore, you know? I would love to see them get involved in parks and
Yeah.
show off, show off how great Grady kids are, and make kids.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. So Jack, I don't know, do you have other thoughts or?
No, I think you got it. She was very receptive. They're looking for new spots. There are a few challenges with the site, but it would be cool. And as David convinced her, I think, down there, that it would be great for that corner of the neighborhood and spiff up the park a wee bit. And then we also, walking out of there, we tried to see if there was a sculpture we could get along the St. Charles side, and she's going to mull that over to see if they have any sculptural exhibits that they could put there. And failing that, David and I were kicking around the notion of at least putting in a big bunch of flowers, because it's a ton of sunlight.
I told them I'd try to contact some other landscapers if they wanted to adopt that little section.
Well, that would be great, and I think you have great sunlight there, which we don't have in a lot of places in Virginia-Highland, because all these doggone trees were gone. And so it would be awesome if we could get a floral exhibit, I'm joking, if we could get a floral exhibit in there, it would be fantastic.
All of a sudden, it's the southeastern flower show.
Well, we're talking about
Let's
planting.
hope not. I don't think our plans are that large.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to talk to George Beasley to see if he has any sculptures that's in his, either in his garage or, he was professor of sculpture at Georgia State forever. And there may be some students that have some pieces that would be.
It'd be fun to go through his garage, period. That would be.
His house is incredible.
That's gotta be good.
It's absolutely-
David, I can help with the exhibit stuff. I mean, we do this all the time.
Okay.
So can thank both, and we have a museum team that could talk sculpture and.
So I like the Angela's idea too.
Yeah,
If we
and
could
there are some
only,
ways to get.
we can get it framed and we can get it up. I mean, outdoors, she cautioned us about vandalism and all
Yeah,
that.
you have challenges
We
and
have
safety,
vandalism
that's
going
really
on,
much.
so
There's no reason not to do it, right?
we should go for it. And of course, a little blonde in the winter, particularly, so it would be a cool thing to do.
But Angelica's right, there are a lot of really neat ways we do a lot of these projects with our public history students at Kennesaw in a group of grades. I mean, we might get the bones of it up
Yeah.
and then expand it into a project.
I like it because it's gonna turn over.
Yeah.
I mean, it could turn over seasonally, I mean, that's a long shot, but maybe twice a year even.
Yeah. But we could also
Yeah.
have some of the historic photos from Lowell's.
Ideally, I don't know that it
And-
necessarily correlates, but we talked about trying to get something installed and a temporary one along North Holland prior to Summerfest. We've also
Yeah.
brought people in for Summerfest.
People will linger, they'll
And
really
then
like that.
add to that business corridor.
Well, and there's really nowhere that we tell the history of Virginia-Highland or the story of Virginia-Highland, so there might be an easy way to do that. That's, you can do that in very few historic photographs and exhibit panel. So you want to volunteer, that's, make it a PR effort to get people engaged in the movement too.
All right.
That's it.
So, is there any new business here?
I did want to say that we sent out the article about the house number signs, and we are up to 5 out of the 10 we need for the next batch. So if you know anybody that needs a house number to layer, yeah,
What do they run?
235. everybody went for the expensive one. I mean,
Really
we had
good.
2 orders for the printed one.
Good.
I don't know if anybody's bought the other one off of Etsy, but they look really cool, so. I
Have
hate
you
to
seen
make-
any hanging up? I'm dying to see what this looks like on somebody's house.
Peggy has some up on
Okay.
certain addresses. I can send you addresses where they are. Mine's up, and mine was a prototype, so it's not as,
Yeah.
it doesn't look the same as the current ones.
Just learned how to hang mine, so I'll have it up by next week.
I'm gonna go get chain and put it with them. Because there's a channel you can run chain through. But I've had so many people ask me, I'm like, I mean, it's got a thing to do it, but it depends on the surface. We all have such different, like the Stone
Sure.
Mountain stone is an issue, and it might take a professional to get it up there.
Anything else? All right, well, I think I'll ask board members to hang around for another session, but I think we are officially adjourned at the near record early hour of
Well done.
7:37.
Forever.
You need a federal, so this is a move people along.
Did everybody sign the card that was circulated?